This PowerPoint is, like I said, is what I delivered for the first hour of the boot camp yesterday, and I'm just going to go through it really quickly today. So the overview of the presentation, I talk about why marketing partnerships are important. I talk about types of effective partnerships, common goals and outcomes, and some examples and case studies. So why marketing partnerships? So, really, when we're talking about marketing strategies, we spend a lot of time talking about expending resources to generate awareness, traffic, and exposure for our clients or ourselves. And a lot of times that comes down to a combination of earned media, where we're trying to get coverage from the press, our own social media, where we're communicating with an audience that we're spending some money to engage with, both time and potentially advertising dollars. Traditional advertising, whether that be traditional online or some hybrid of those two. And then content creation and different things we can do to create thought leadership, from writing for our own websites, writing for other websites, and things like that. But we don't always talk about ways we can work with other companies or niche online media to create kind of win-win opportunities that are sort of reciprocal in nature. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of those and ways you can do ones that are both free and potentially where you can put some of your advertising dollars behind it. Reaching new people is challenging. It takes time to build trust. Communicating with an existing audience is always easier, and this is why email is typically less expensive than social media, which is usually less expensive than almost any other form of marketing, because as you get less connected with your audience, you have to spend more money to reach them, and that's why paid media even exists. Big brands typically often use celebrities and sometimes corporate sponsorships, and as well as industry partners to create these types of partnerships. What I'm going to talk about is ways that small businesses can do these similar types of engagements. And when you think creatively, you can create big wins for your small business. Some types of partnerships are very low cost and some are free. Typically, there's at least some element of time involved for your team to coordinate and develop the partnership and execute the strategy. But in some cases, that's all there is just time involved. In other cases, you want to invest either in paying for some distribution of the opportunity, or you're actually paying for the partners to participate in the campaign. Partnerships can typically be fairly low risk and high reward when done right. Obviously, there are some types of partnerships which may cost a lot more money to initiate, in which case it may not be so low risk. But I think a lot of the examples I'm going to share are pretty low risk. So this is a graph that I think we may have shared before in the Institute, but I wanted to revisit it because I think it's really telling. It sort of shows the average relative cost to reach 1,000 people through various mediums. And at the top, it has television. At the bottom, it has Facebook ads. And it covers a bunch of social, traditional, and digital outlets in between. And why this is important, I'll get into later, but it's because when you're working with partners, you can often reach their social media audience through social advertising for what would be pennies on the dollar compared to a lot of other options within advertising budgets. Here's some examples of who you might be able to partner with. You can partner with your existing peers. These are other businesses that you have an existing relationship with. They might be part of your supply chain. They might be part of your neighborhood or your business district. They might be part of a informal business group, like a business coaching group that you're part of, or a local business association that's sort of small and not specific to one industry. It might also be industry associations. You might be involved with an industry association for your type of business, and there may be ways you can create new ideas for ways those organizations can collaborate that you spearhead and therefore you get some credit for, maybe a little bit more exposure from. You can engage in reciprocal efforts with one company at a time. So where you could say, review their product on your blog and send that out to your newsletter and social media list in exchange for having them do the same thing. In general, that's a little bit more simplified than what I'd like to talk about for the focus of this conversation, but that is one type of marketing partnership that it's a good place to start if you're intimidated by some of the more complicated ideas I'm going to share later. You can also work with influencers. And these are niche or sometimes local celebrities. Oftentimes they're national or international in nature, but they talk about a very specific subject that has a passionate but distributed audience. And if your product or service fits into that, it's really a great way to market your products. So working with those kind of people, usually they're bloggers, and I'll talk a little bit more about them in the next couple of slides, because that's a word that I know that not everyone is familiar with. You can work with affiliates and commission partners. That is where the partner has an existing audience, and they're looking to monetize that by getting some sort of kickback when they tell their audience about products. You definitely want it to be a product that they're also passionate about. So working with the most authentic affiliates is better than working with affiliates that just are trying to over monetize their list, because they'll be kind of worn out by getting too many deals and offers from the whoever that is that's controlling those lists. And then it's also possible to work with nonprofits. Lots of nonprofits generate revenue by giving exposure to companies that give them money for sponsorships of events. But if you can go a little bit beyond that normal kind of event marketing, event sponsorship, or even naming rights for some sort of campaign that nonprofit's doing, and look at ways you can do more creative and collaborative things that might be worthy of media and might be worthy of another level of recognition above what would normally come from like kind of the standard run-of-the-mill type of co-promotions. I don't have any great examples for that one, but we'll get into some examples of the other ones in the rest of the presentation. I'm really going to basically be encouraging everyone to start thinking outside the box, and just don't just focus on those relationships you already have where you can easily ask for a reciprocal pat on the back. Where can you look for ways to work with new partners, and maybe even in new mediums like influencers where you haven't worked before? And is that going to work necessarily for your business? And if so, how can you make it work, and how can you fit that into your time and your budget for your advertising and marketing strategy? First of all, I want to define what an influencer is. So typically, as I mentioned before, a thought leader with a specific topic focus. They almost always use online channels to build and talk to their audience. This is almost exclusively includes social media and often blogging. Sometimes it's more than just blogging, and it can include YouTube and podcasting as well, potentially niche social media networks such as Vine and Instagram and others as well. But they often, cross over to the most popular social networks like Facebook and Twitter, and content on their own website, usually through blogging and sometimes with integrated YouTube videos as well as a YouTube channel. So some influencers are very purely YouTube. I find that for long-term marketing, that using a combination of influencers, and especially some that have a strong blog with strong SEO, is going to give you the best long-term investment. Because if someone writes a blog about your business, talking about your products and services, and they have a very strong online reputation and a strong potential to rank, their blog about you could actually show up for keywords that you want to be found for. And then their endorsement could be like a vote of confidence for people looking for your products and services to come over to your website. And depending on how you set it up, that might be a free link, was part of a paid promotion that was a one-time thing, or it could be an affiliate link that's continuously giving them some kickback for anyone that follows through that link and buys from your website. And influencers can range in popularity from under 1,000 fans and audience size to up into the many millions. So what you want to do is find influencers that are super focused on what your company has to talk about and what your products are about, and then who are of the right size to help you stretch and grow a little bit, but aren't so large that they're prohibitively expensive, or so large that they have overvalued their network, or too broad in subject matter where them promoting your product, only a small percentage of their fans might find it interesting or useful. That doesn't help them, or it doesn't help you either. So you want to find those, what I consider super niche bloggers and online influencers to work with if you choose to go this route. So I like to say that if your company is looking to communicate with a niche national audience, then there's almost certainly one influencer that you could be working with. If your company is local in nature, it's a little bit less likely to be a good fit for a bunch of reasons. But it still can potentially work, especially if there's travel bloggers that are coming through and they want to cover your business. If you're like a tourism-related business, if you're a local service business, this may not be the best approach for your business. It's still something to consider, especially the other kinds of partnerships I'm going to talk about later. So one local example would be Ash Vegas. It's a blog and social. He also has social media accounts on major platforms, including Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, as well as I'm sure others. He's, I would say, a little bit more on the journalism side than on the influencer side. He's definitely something of a local celebrity. People definitely would want him to come and cover any big events or openings that are happening in town. But he takes more of a journalistic approach and doesn't as influenced by being paid to cover things as some other influencers would be. He prides himself in that, and also has a strong background in traditional journalism, which kind of, I think, guides some of his ethics and how he approaches his business. And he tries to make most of his money off what would be considered more traditional advertising versus paid advertorial and paid coverage. But it's still an example of a local type of influencer, and other local bloggers here and elsewhere would be similar examples.